Finishing up part 2 of fair lending on page 167 of the reference guide to regulatory compliance. I'm in subsection 2 regarding credit. Talking about risk factors that examiners consider when they are selecting a scope to examine. This is the review of they review the lending policies, marketing plans, underwriting, pricing guidelines, broker agreements, and loan LARs and loan application forms. They review any data regarding geographic distribution of the bank's loan originations. They conduct interviews of loan officers, and they look for factors of overt discrimination, potential disparate treatment and underwriting, pricing, or steering, potential discrimination by redlining, and potential disparate treatment and marketing. Let's see if the examiners consider anything else when they are deciding what scope to use to examine the bank. Couple more factors here. Examiners will organize and focus residential risk analysis for each loan product that displays risk factors, articulate the possible discriminatory effects encountered, and organize the examination based on completing more thorough reviews of the problem areas. Examiners will identify consumer lending discrimination risk factors and review credit card, motor vehicle, home equity, and other consumer loan products. Examiners will analyze commercial lending discrimination risk factors and consider the results of the evaluation of each area of risk and select focal points that warrant examination. Intensity is the other part of the examination fair lending. This review determines the intensity of the scope of the examination and the reliability of the institution's practices and procedures. The intensity refers to the depth of the analysis done on the selected focal points. Examiners will determine whether the bank's policies and procedures enable management to prevent or identify and self-correct illegal disparate treatment in lending transactions. Examiners will obtain an understanding of the manner by which management addresses its fair lending responsibilities with respect to the bank's lending practices, training and other application processing aids, guidance to employees in dealing with customers, and marketing or other promotion of products. Examination procedures then include verifying the accuracy of the data, and that would be your HMDA data and your non-HMDA data, and documenting overt evidence of disparate treatment found or based on written policy or found or based in oral statements or unwritten practice. You have examination procedures including transactional underwriting analysis for residential and consumer loans. This is based on a sample size that was selected from a fair lending sample size table to determine the sample composition and compare approved and denied applications, which involves the creation of applicant profiles and the review and compare of the profiles, and expanding the sample if there is some evidence of violations but not enough to establish a pattern or practice. And lastly, discussing the findings with management. Other examination procedures include the analysis of potential disparities in pricing and other terms, steering analysis, transactional underwriting analysis of commercial loans, and analysis of potential redlining, credit scoring, and disparate impact issues. This is the last of the examination procedures, so let me continue. When the examiners are analyzing potential disparities in pricing and other terms, they're going to determine the sample selection, determine the sample composition, and create, again, applicant profiles, and review the terms and conditions and compare with the buyer outcomes. There's a steering analysis performed by examiners to clarify the options available to the applicants and document the policies, conditions, or criteria that have been adopted by the institution for determining how referrals are made, determine how referral decisions are made and documented, and if a loan personnel has discretion in deciding what products and features to offer, conducting comparative analysis to determine whether that discretion has been exercised in a non-discriminatory manner. And examiners should consult with supervisors to see if they need to contact applicants to substantiate during analysis, because they do have the right, or at least the CFPB has the right to reach out to the bank's customers and to get their verbal input in the examination of the banks. Another set of examination procedures include transactional underwriting analysis of commercial loans. Examiners want to understand the commercial loan policies, conduct comparative file review, conduct targeted sampling. And another procedure of examiners is analysis of potential redlining. There's a couple of steps here to identify and delineate any areas that are of a racial or national origin minority character. Determine whether any minority area is excluded, underserved, or excluded from marketing efforts or otherwise less favorably treated. Identify, this is the third step, and delineate any areas for residential products that are non-minority in character and that the institution appears to treat more favorably. Identify the location of any minority area located just outside the institution's market area such that the institution may be purposely avoiding. Obtaining the institution's explanation for the apparent differences in treatment, determine whether it is credible and reasonable, and obtaining and evaluating specific types of information that may support or contradict the finding of redlining. In the analysis, in the examination procedure for the analysis of potential discriminatory marketing practices, examiners identify the institution's marketing initiatives, determine whether the institution's activities show a significantly lower level of marketing effort toward minority areas or toward media that tend to reach minority areas, and credit scoring, which is the review of the institution's credit scoring system, and lastly, disparate impact issues. Last but not least, within the examination, the examiners will review the institution's responses. And there's no clarity there what that means. I'm assuming they're responses to complaints. Lastly, subsection 4 is penalties, civil and criminal enforcement under the Fair Housing Act and Equal Credit Opportunity Act as applicable. You also have FERA penalties applying. These are your usual $7,500, $37,500, and $1.375 million per day against persons who knowingly are committing violations and are benefiting from it. A pattern or practice of violating the fair lending laws can result in referrals to the DOJ and HUD. Past settlements with these departments have required restitution to affected customers, setting aside funds for special lending programs, extensive overhauls to bank procedures, employee training, testing, and monitoring of bank lending practices. In other words, a formal agreement or consent order could be expected, with these being requirements to perform in order to have such lifted. That's actually going to be the end of the fair lending section on page 170.